So welcome everybody. My name is Judy Feldhausen, and I'm here
Thank you.
with my co-host Bob Wischmeier, who together we are going to talk about the 8th chapter of John Maxwell's book, The Laws of Leadership. And this chapter was interesting for me, and it is the law of intuition. Something just happened with my picture. So the law of intuition, and the law of intuition as relates to leadership. So when we're talking about the law of intuition, please suspend your beliefs in the people with the crystal balls and the belief that people can see into the future by just observing things from wherever. That is not what we're going to talk about today, or at all. Our law of intuition really pertains more to leadership, and as regular intuition, it is about that inner knowing that we develop as beings as we live through our life and develop skills. Just that knowledge that you know things more than just the facts. Isn't that true, Bob?
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit of a challenge, I think, to articulate. I've had a little bit of a problem trying to articulate this, the whole concept of the law of leadership, but I'll do the very best that I can as we move forward. So are you being able to hear me okay now, Judy?
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk for just a minute as we get started about the idea or the concept that even this idea or this concept of intuition or a law of intuition, it's more than just facts. Leaders look at things differently than others do. They evaluate things differently. They evaluate things according to their leadership bias. We all have a bias. We do. We look at things, we perceive things our own way. And people who, especially those who are natural leaders, observe things in life from a leadership position or with a leadership bias. But that intuition that they have is much more than just facts. It's a combination: facts, instincts, intangible things. A good leader will walk into a room, he'll sense the morale of the individuals there or his business associates. He'll sense that, or he or she will. Take note of the momentum of the business, how business is going, personal relationships, things of that nature. And from that leadership position, that leadership bias that is intuitive to most leaders, that's how they make decisions. They add all of those things up. It requires you to get facts. It requires a leader to get facts, but then he uses his life experience, his business experience, or whatever as he moves forward. It's a combination of those things. And I say he, I mean he or she. Great leaders base their decisions as much on intuition or what they're feeling inside as they do on facts, And we've all heard it before, well, I just feel it. I feel it in my gut. I've got this gut feeling, that kind of a thing. I have a friend from Montana named Lot Smith. An interesting guy. He's kind of tall. He has red hair. He has his right eye is kind of lazy, kind of moves a little bit, and so when you observe, appear to be the sharpest tool in the shed, if you will, but that's not the case at all. And Lot Smith has just got he has this built-in intuition for business, and he has made millions of dollars. He's bought, built, and sold several different businesses throughout the course of his life. When he was probably in his late 40s, he was already a millionaire. And this is in Montana, for heaven's sake. He just has that, and he figures things out, and he just goes for it.
We're losing you, Bob.
He does it. You know, it's, I had a friend who once said to me, it's not the big fish that eats the little fish. Okay, sorry, are we there now? It's
Yep.
not the big fish that eats the little fish. You know what I'm saying? It's like moving quickly on things. So when you look at a situation with the leadership bias, you read and react quickly. Can you still hear me, Judy? Are we all right?
Yep, you're coming through good now.
Awesome. Sorry about that. Well, let's look at our next slide then.
So,
Seeing things through a leadership lens.
yeah, it's interesting that John Maxwell brings up looking through
Go ahead.
Looking through the leadership lens, because when I look at taking pictures, you know, I look at it a little bit differently. A lot of you know that my husband is an amateur photographer, but he loves taking pictures, and he sees things in his camera that nobody else can pick up, because that lens in the camera is so focused on whatever he chooses to focus it on, that the stuff around him is really inconsequential, because he's really looking and taking that lens and really taking that focus into that specific place that he wants to highlight. And the same thing happens when, as leaders, we're doing that. You know, I did a presentation, a Facebook Live presentation during the week, and I can now go back and look at what the presentation was and really look at it through the leadership lens, and, you know, look at specific things that I now want to focus on as I am moving forward in, you know, the True Loom business, because I have that lens just fine-tuned on that specific event, and looking at specific things within the event that you know, need some more fine-tuning. So having that leadership lens, so to speak, helps to really get rid of all the other fluff and stuff that is going on, and allows us to look at those things that in our guts we know needs to be done and focused on and reviewed.
You know, I think it's safe to say that who you are as an individual really dictates what you see or how you see it. That's a fair thing to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in reality, you know, we think we're all looking at the same thing. If we have a glass of water on the table, we think that we're all looking at that glass of water and seeing it the same way. When in reality, we all look at it with our own lens and our own filters, based on the history that we've had, what's happening in the present, and how we see that glass of water moving forward. You know, there's that old saying that it's, you know, a glass of water is either half empty or half full. You know, that's only one way to look at a glass of water.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. We're also different. We're all individuals. That's how it's supposed to be. It would be a drag if everybody was the same. So we do. We see things differently. But when you're in leadership position, especially if you're, a focused, even if I might say a natural leader, you just simply observe things a little bit differently because your bias is a leadership bias. It's pretty straightforward, really. Who you are really does dictate how you see things, or what you're looking at when you're looking at a situation, especially in the kind of business that we're in, a network marketing business, where it's all about learning and growing and improving, and then, of course, duplicating ourselves.
Yes, and if you look at the leaders in our industry, they are not, the lens that they're looking at is not just network marketing. They have their own slant on how they act as leaders, which is awesome, because look at Synergy alone and all the different types of leaders we have in Synergy. They all have their own just fantastic ways how they do business, but they're looking at it through a different lens. And as we develop as leaders, we have to be able to kind of pick up that camera, step back, and focus differently.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Even as we just look at the folks that are on our webinar this morning, Judy, and look how different all of us are. We observe things differently, every one of us. Dan's business model that he's worked so well with the YouTube videos and stuff is completely different from the business model that the rest of us use. You have your own business model. We're all different. We see things a little bit differently. There are things that resonate with us that don't resonate with each of us individually, that don't resonate with everyone else. That's really the beauty of network marketing, though, is that you can go forward with your business in a way that works for you.
That's so true. And so as leaders, there are some things that are the same when we are accessing that internal intuition, and we may filter it differently, but we really have some commonalities also that brings up our intuition as we move forward in our business.
Yeah, exactly. I love this slide. Leaders are readers. Little guys just really studying away there. But when we talk about leaders being readers, we're not just talking about reading books. Reading books, however, is extremely important. When I very first got started with Synergy Worldwide, the people I was working with reminded me that it would be the people that I met and the books that I read that were going to make the biggest differences in my life going forward, and it has been true. And I've read more books that I would not have read otherwise had I not gotten into this business over the last several years than I can even imagine. I mean, I've got a whole library of books that I would not normally have purchased. So we are readers, but we're also readers of other things. We're readers, for example, of situations. Leaders with intuition are very aware of the atmosphere, the environment of their business. They're just aware of it. It's just intuitive. They tune in to leadership dynamics. You can almost, in a way, you can almost smell what's going on in the organization. They feel it. They get it. In a very real sense, they know the situation before they even get the facts. That's the result of leadership intuition. We see it all the time. I think Dan Higginson is a great example of that. He's simply got his finger on the pulse of the business, and you learn to read the situation. And we all do this. It's a natural thing to do. But when you have that leadership bias in mind, when you look at a situation that you're involved in, and you're in a leadership mode, I guess is the right word, you see and feel things just a little bit differently. We're also readers of trends. I mean, no one has ever articulated that better to me than Dan Higginson had about timing and trends. He speaks about it pretty much every time he gets up to give a talk. Everything that happens around us does so, if you think about it, in the context of a bigger picture. Leaders have the ability, and I think in a very real sense, the responsibility to step back from what's happening in the moment and discern not only where your business or your organization has been, but where it's headed to. You know, you're always looking ahead as well. You don't have to look past the mark, but you need to look to the mark in the future. Sometimes they can accomplish this through analysis, but often, I think, the best leaders sense it first. They find data that explains it later, but they sense it first. And their intuition tells them that something is happening. Conditions are changing. And I think sometimes even that, you know, there's trouble ahead, you know, or that a situation needs to change. That intuitive, that leadership intuition really, really comes into play. Seems like, yeah, go ahead, Judy.
So I was just going to say, and a good leader can look at those trends and take advantage of them, or try to organize them differently, try to mitigate some things that are happening, because they can see the trends. You know, even in our personal lives with family dynamics, if you look at the trend of what's happening in the family, you know, is it going positive or negative? And if it is going negative, what do we do to look at that situation and change it to a positive trend? And a leader can find those dynamics and look at them, and then actually make a difference in where the trend is going. But the first thing is to observe what's happening, and that comes from our intuition.
Yeah, that's it. And then they ponder on it. That's the other side of that equation, is that, you know, you see these things, you feel these things, then you need to stop and ponder, consider, you know, brainstorm how to move forward. It seems like good leaders are pretty much always a few steps ahead of the game. But while I was reading through this and studying through this, of all the crazy things, I thought about Dan Higginson's daughter. Do you remember Dan talking about how it used to be several years ago, every time he made a trip to Japan, his little girl would say to him, "Dad, buy me a bunch of Pokemon stuff." And I don't know what all Pokemon stuff is, but he would buy her a bunch of stuff in Japan, bring it back, and she was selling it to her friends. And then one day when Dan was headed to Japan, he said, "Hey, I'm heading back over. Do you want me to get you some Pokemon stuff?" She said, No, that's done now. I need you to get me something else. I can't even remember what it was. But she had recognized, his daughter recognized that trend of that Pokemon stuff was over. There was something new. And she's just a little girl, but she picked up on that. And I thought how interesting that was. And when Dan shares the story, of course, it's way better than me sharing the story. But yeah, timing and trends, it's huge.
And she was able to look at what her resources were, right?
Exactly.
And utilize the resource of her father going to Japan and helping her in what she wanted to do as a leader in, you know, selling things here in the United States.
Yeah. What a family, huh?
Yeah. Right. We have to look at the technology and you know, what's happening to technology, and what are the materials we need? What's the money that is going to be required? And so many people believe that you get into a network marketing business and there is no money because there's such a low startup. But because it is a business, we have to treat it as a business, and there is some money requirements. You have to really be aware of how you're going to find those resources and utilize our money. And really, the people in our teams is one of our best resources. Wouldn't you agree with that, Bob?
Absolutely. I think that, you want to maximize every asset, every resource that you've got to benefit your organization. And I think it's fair to say, whenever we talk about resources, we end up talking about Dan Hammer. And Dan, I don't want to embarrass you, but seriously, you've created more resource material for Synergy distributors than Synergy has by far. And we take advantage of that. It's what you do. And as a good leader, you want to share that stuff. You want to get that information to your distributors, to your customers, so that they have opportunity to use those same resources. We're all a little bit different in that. You can stop and talk to everybody on the call here and say, well, which of the resources that are available do you use? And you're going to get a little bit different flavor from everyone. There are different resources that resonate with us. We all have a good friend in Synergy by the name of Pete Miller. And Pete Miller does a lot of his business in the Amish community. And he and I have had these conversations, long conversations, about the kinds of resources that he is limited to, because the people in the organizations within the Amish community that he works with don't use computer technology. So all of the videos and stuff that we have available at our fingertips, thanks to Dan, Pete can't use. He has to use hard copy brochures, things of that nature that he can hand to those people, and they in turn hand them out too. So he picked up on that right away. What resources can he use? What access does he have? And so again, just being a good leader, that's how he handles it.
Yeah, that's true. We have to look at what resources we have and where we want to go. And also being able to read and understand people and where they are coming from, that gut feeling of, this is what the words say, but really what's behind the words. I got a phone call early this morning from a customer, and he started talking about pro-arginine not working for him. And that really wasn't really why he called, but that's what he led with. And so being able to ask questions and really get to really what is he looking for? What does he want? What is his goal? And what is he trying to say with talking about pro-arginine? And so as leaders, we really have to listen really well and understand people behind the words and behind even sometimes the actions. Sometimes when I have grandchildren, and sometimes they act out, and the acting out sometimes does not have anything to do with what they're complaining about. So they might be hungry or overtired, but they don't say, may I have something to eat? They get cranky. So I'm
the same way, Judy.
You're the same way, Bob. I noticed that about you.
Well, I mentioned Pete Miller just a moment ago with relationship to the Amish community. He reads those people. Those are his people. Those are people he loves and cares about, and he's working with them. He understands their needs, and because he gets it. He gets it. So he's a reader of people as well. Mm-hmm. What about yourself? What about being a reader of yourself, Judy?
Yeah, that I think sometimes can be the toughest. We often don't take time to understand where we're coming from and what we need, and really what is our motivation in our business and in our personal life. Being a reader of ourselves takes some time.
It really does. Sometimes you have to stop and reevaluate yourself. Especially, we need to, for not just in our business, but in our personal lives as well. It's a searching effort at self-improvement. And we have to, if we're going to be leading a group of people, we have to stop from time to time and ponder, kind of give ourselves a bit of a stewardship interview, and say, okay, now wait a minute. Now, why did I Why am I doing this? Why am I moving in this direction? Why did I respond the way I responded? Do I need to stop? Do I need to check? Do I need to apologize to someone? All of those kinds of things. You need to be humble but bold, both, I think, to be a good leader.
That's true. And you know, it reminds me of the quote that John Maxwell wrote about James Russell Lovell, who said, "No one can produce great things who is not thoroughly sincere in dealing with himself."
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, that's absolutely true, Judy. Thanks for sharing that. Well, let's talk a little bit for a minute now about levels of leadership intuition. I think it's important that we do that because all of us can improve our leadership intuition if we want to. We can develop skills. We can gain experience, if you will, to help us along the way. One of the things that I've certainly noticed in life is that first-time experiences, all the firsts are hard. You know, I remember the first time I ever got on a conference call. Bonnie and I, out in Montana where we lived, you know, we sat side by side in my little office with the phone between us, you know, a landline, listening to our very first conference call, being like nervous about punching in the access code. I still remember that. Those firsts they're challenging, and that's just how it is. But the second time, the next time around, not so hard. And pretty soon, those things that at one point in time seemed rather difficult become fairly easy, fairly simple. It's not that it's become easier, it's just that our ability to do it is improved. I think that's important. And there are those who naturally understand leadership, who just simply naturally see it. Some people are just born with it. You can look at the playground, Judy. You go with those grandkids down to school, look at the playground, and you'll see what I mean. You will see children leading. It's natural. Some people are simply born with it. But those who are not born with it can improve. That's been my experience. There are those who are nurtured to see it. There are individuals who can learn who can understand leadership, and I think that includes most of us. If we have adequate people skills, and if we're teachable, I think we can develop intuition. Leadership can be learned, but it requires trying or seeking ways to improve.
And that's where John Maxwell talks about informed intuition, because we look at our natural abilities combined with our personal experiences, what has happened in the past, what the results were, and what was done about it. So when we look at it from a perspective of informed intuition, we can nurture that because we can develop that. And, you know, our personal experiences are absolutely priceless.
Well, they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, you can develop intuition by changing your thinking. You know, you can do that by studying, by reading, pondering, you know, all those slight edge advantages. You can use that to increase your ability to do some intuitive thinking. You know, we see it all the time. There are those who are naturally good at that sort of thing, and there are others who can gain it. And then there are those who are never going to see it. I mean, we all know people who are just kind of the dump, if you will. Don't care, you know, don't give a rip what goes on in life. That's just kind of a part of things too. But I think you can develop intuition by changing your thinking and working at it.
Yes, and you know, and a lot of times it is a conscious decision. Sometimes it becomes unconscious, but it starts with a conscious decision of really doing that observing and the learning and the pondering, so to speak, which you have taught me so well, Bob.
Well, it takes energy, and I think that's part of this. You know, you have to have a desire to grow, to improve your life, and that requires some energy, you know, and that's I think that's where we lose people sometimes. And I think we look at network marketing often and wonder, why is it that in countries like in Japan or South Korea or some of these other markets that are really, really doing well versus the American market? And I think it's oftentimes because we're not hungry enough. We're not, we're kind of lazy a little bit, if you will.
Well, and we give up too quickly.
Yeah.
You know, if it's not immediate gratification, then it's not worth pursuing. And that is just such a fallacy, because the best things happen when we have really worked on them and have developed them and can overcome them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we solve problems using the law of leadership. Judy, what's your thought?
Yeah. So as we go out through our day, I think awareness is such a key, especially when it comes to the law of intuition. I have a girlfriend who she's calls herself an intuitive, and I notice about her that her observation is just at such a high level. She has such a peace about her that, you know, is she seeing the future, or is she seeing the possibility, and really taking a step back and observing what she sees in the people that she is seeing such a future for. She sees such goodness in people, and she picks up that as she observes it, and helps people manifest it then from her belief in their future. It's an amazing thing to see.
Yeah. So really, it's fair to say that she's naturally has that gift.
She naturally has that gift, but she is nurturing it. I see it I see her a few times a year, and I notice how she really is working on the part of observation and really tuning into people and where they are and where they're going. So it's definitely a combination. And as leaders, we have to use that law of intuition, whether it's informed intuition or natural intuition. The observing part is just absolutely primary.
I think that said, I think we have to be willing to trust our intuition as well. I think that's extremely important. The principles of leadership, are constant, really, but the application changes with every situation, every person. That's why it requires intuition. We look at the facts, we try to read the situation, but a good leader most of the time is going to go with how he feels about it, regardless of what the facts may tell him. And so, yeah, I think we have to be willing to trust our intuition. I was thinking about, well, what specifically, what are some things that we individually can do to increase this intuition in our own life, to become more aware of it, or to I don't know, just to focus on it. And I thought, well, reading books is part of that. Leaders are readers. And I think sometimes we need to engage in more conversation. We need to learn more from people. We just need to talk to people more, become a people watcher. I was thinking about Jeff Olson and his Slide Edge Advantage, and when he started the very beginning of that book, he's getting his shoes shined, talking to a lady who reads all of these little novels all the time, and he commented that if she, instead of when she was in between shining shoes, if she was reading books on self-improvement and things of that nature instead of romance novels, that she'd be really. And so,
yeah, it is true, and it's a lifelong process. And
anyway, can you still hear me okay, Judy?
Yes, I can hear you. And not only is it being observant and stepping back, but knowing that it is an art. It is something that develops over time and changes as the picture is coming into focus, as the artist is using their paints to create a masterpiece. It's little pieces together that are much more than just the facts. It's looking at our experience and the possibility and all the little pieces around what people's needs and wants are. That's part of developing our intuition.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful painting. I love that. So really, I think we've kind of covered what we had planned on covering this morning. I'm not sure whether we've articulated the way we feel about this or how this principle works as well as we could have, but it's been a lot of fun. Do we have any questions?
Bob, I don't have necessarily a question, but I do have a comment. One of the things that you shared at the beginning and you repeated several times is that we as leaders come with a bias. And if you change your bias, then you most likely will also begin to change some of the intuition and how you look at things. And I'm working with a person who's thinking about joining Synergy Worldwide. He's been in network marketing in multiple companies and never been successful. And to me, the thing that had to change in his thinking is he's got to stop looking at this as recruitment, because that's what he's tried to do. And recruitment in network marketing, where you try and paint that dream that all you need to do is recruit 2 people and then teach them to recruit 2 people, and over a period of time you're going to be swimming in money. And unfortunately, that's an image that the network marketing industry is allowed to propagate. And what I shared with him is you've got to treat this like a real business. And any real business requires customers. And that is your focus. You need to understand how to market like a real business. You need to treat this like a real business. That unfortunate reality of network marketing is that the entry point into network marketing is pretty low cost, maybe $200, $300 for an individual to join a network marketing company like Synergy Worldwide, as opposed to my kid's coffee shop, $200,000 investment for them. Now, when they wake up every morning, they don't have $300 on the line. They've got $200,000 on the line. So I've seen them change their perspective about how they go about doing things. And from a business standpoint, that you need to show up for work every day, whether you like it or not. You need to be engaged with your customer, whether you like it or not. You need to put aside those things that you don't like doing, and you now need to like doing them, because everything that you do in front of people, you begin to brand yourself in this whole process. And so if you change I guess the point I'm trying to make is if you change your bias and how you look at things, you can also change your intuitive feelings about how you need to run your business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly right.
It really does. And it's looking really down at the beginning. What is your bias? And is that bias serving you, or is it not? Is it not supporting what you want to get to? And if it's not, then time to change the bias.
Well, and I'll take this another step for myself. I'm looking for people who want to go to work, who want to build a business and understand that there's a commitment. And if you don't understand that, and if you're not willing to apply that, then I'm not going to sponsor you into Synergy Worldwide, and I'm not going to spend time working with you because you don't have the right attitude. And you can find someone else to join to be your sponsor, or just be a happy customer. Because until you have that desire that you talked about at the end there, to really put in the time and effort to create something of substantial influence, it's just not going to happen. You cannot do this with a part-time attitude. You can do part-time hours, but you have to have a full-time mental commitment to building a real business. And a real business in what we're doing with Synergy Worldwide is two phases. It's customers and it's distributors. And the beauty about this is intuitively, I don't know if Synergy Worldwide made this decision intuitively, but thankfully, whoever made that decision to put a customer component as a key factor in both our compensation plan as well as in how the Synergy business model works here in the United States, that's going to protect them from the FTC from going after them as a pyramiding company in the area of network marketing. Because the FTC is targeting companies that only focus on recruiting distributors. You do that, you are a target now in the United States, and you're going to pay a price for it. Thankfully, Synergy Worldwide allows us to treat this like a real business, to build a customer base, and that protects them as well as it provides us with cash flow to truly grow your Synergy business. So I'll get off my my platform here.
Thank you for adding that, Dan. I so appreciate it. And, you know, one of the things about being a leader and even not being a leader is that people are observing what we do and how we handle ourselves in good times and in bad, and what our values are as people. And, you know, the leaders are going to rise to the top, and they're going to be followed and mimicked. And so we have to be able to, as a leader, put our best foot forward and do the best that we can with the resources that we have and develop them into becoming even better leaders. Because, you know, we are being seen through a leadership lens ourselves.
Perfect. Thank you, Judy. Thank you.
I like to simply add providing feedback, and this is one of the hallmarks of this group. Being able to provide feedback to the individual, and this is one of Dan's other greatest facets.
Absolutely. We can't grow and we can't learn unless we have input.
That's correct. Thank you, guys.
So anything else before we say goodbye today?
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Dan, for your insight. Great. Appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you for everyone for participating today. We know that, you know, Saturday mornings we all have a lot of things to do, so we appreciate the time that you've taken to listen to some of the thoughts of John Maxwell, Bob Wischmeier, and Judy Feldhausen.